So this call to action suggests that there are too many barriers that exist for mothers who want to breastfeed. The barriers are encountered at home, at work, and in the community. Some examples are a lack of knowledge. While breastfeeding is considered a natural skill, some mothers may need some education to help and guidance. And lactation problems. Without good support, many women may have problems with breastfeeding, and many of these problems are often avoided if they're identified early and treated early. And we also have social norms that are a barrier. Many people see breastfeeding as an alternative.
My husband Doug and I have 9 children. And when Helen was born, that was November 10th, 1960, I wanted to breastfeed because it just seemed to be the natural thing to do. But nobody knew anything about breastfeeding, including the doctors. They weren't trained in it, and there weren't many breastfeeding mothers to talk with. So my husband, who was raised on a farm, knew more about the idea of milk flow from milking cows than the doctor did.
They were both bottle babies. I didn't even give the thought of breastfeeding. I didn't give it a thought at all. It was a no way, no way, no way, no way. I brought bottles and formula with me to the hospital, and I didn't even try to breastfeed. Why? Really, just because it wasn't natural to me. I've never even seen it happen. I didn't know anything about it. You know, no one really told me why I should or why I shouldn't. It just seemed natural. You know, every mother that I knew carried bottles and formula around, and that's just what we did.
You know, I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. I didn't take the time to do the research on it, and stopped breastfeeding after 2 months because I found it too frustrating, and I felt like my milk wasn't coming in and all this other stuff.
It's all up to them. So, you know, for us, since I hadn't been there long enough to get short-term disability leave or sick pay, I got whatever vacation I had accrued at that point, which was, I think, 8 days. And once that 8 days was paid, I was unpaid after that. So we actually were unpaid for several weeks. So
when he was first born, we did have some issues breastfeeding. When he was born, he was fighting an infection, and he had jaundice, and he had kind of some issues, so he was in the NICU for a little while, although he was full term. So he wouldn't nurse right away. He was just too sleepy, too tired. They ended up giving him formula through his nose in the NICU because he wouldn't take a bottle or anything. In hindsight, I wish I would have fought more to try to get him to nurse, fought to have the lactation consultant spend more time with me, you know, but hindsight's 20/20.
Margaret, Edie, Terry, Amy, and Kelsey all experienced different challenges regarding breastfeeding, but they are not alone. The U.S. Surgeon General reported that out of 75% of women who leave the hospital breastfeeding, only 13% continue to exclusively breastfeed for the recommended first 6 months. In past generations, there has always been a mother, an aunt, or a grandmother who knew how to breastfeed. But many women lack this family support figure today.
A lot of women, their mothers didn't breastfeed, or maybe they did, but they're far away and they're not able to offer that support. And that's why, you know, breastfeeding mothers groups are really, really important. And now we kind of have two options. We can have an in-person breastfeeding mothers group like I had with my first 17 years ago, but now there's so much support online.
Watching your baby grow stronger with those first few steps. What a wonderful feeling. Like the good warm feeling that comes with happier meal times.
During the 1940s and 50s, formula companies, doctors, and mothers believed that baby formula was as good or maybe even better than breast milk. Formula kept baby fuller longer and allowed the whole family to participate in feeding time. Mothers and doctors were so sold on formula that by the mid-1950s, only 1 in 5 babies ever even latched onto their mother's breast.
In the days when I was breastfeeding, mothers didn't breastfeed, and they certainly didn't have a circle of friends that got together and breastfed their babies together. It was kind of like a hush-hush thing to breastfeed your baby because nobody knew anything about it. All they would talk about was keep the baby on a schedule. Well, you can't keep a baby on a schedule when you're breastfeeding.
In April, more than 40 breastfeeding mothers gathered at St. Louis's Forest Park to show their support for breastfeeding. The mothers breastfed on the steps of the World's Fair Pavilion and had a group photo taken. The event was started by Jamie Leaders, who understood the importance of breastfeeding support when her son had difficulty breastfeeding.
It definitely wasn't easy for us. He was tongue-tied and lip-tied, and so we had to get that corrected. So the first 6 weeks were really, really rough, but we pushed through it.
Jamie is a photographer and the owner of a photography studio and baby boutique called Amber Sky in Maplewood, Missouri.
So I wanted a place that was just kind of a one-stop shop for moms. So they can come here right after they have their baby. We can do newborn photos. And then if they're having any sort of issues, need help with baby wearing, breastfeeding, just need to come in and vent and, relax and understand that what they're going through is normal and being sleep deprived, they're able to do that here.
Today, an increased emphasis is being placed on companies to be more supportive places for breastfeeding mothers.
Mothers often lack clean, private place where they can breastfeed or express milk. And without maternity leave, many mothers have to return to work before they are adequately prepared to breastfeed.
In 2010, it became a national law for companies to have a clean and private pumping room, other than a bathroom for working moms. Yet it does take a little bit more than private pumping rooms to build supportive work communities.
It wasn't always easy. I had a boss who was not a mother, who didn't quite get it, and there were times when I said, hey, I've got to take a break because I need to go pump, and I can still remember the look on her face was not a supportive look.
The known health benefits and the increase of mother support groups is having a positive effect on women. Data released by the CDC shows a slow but steady rise in the amount of women who are choosing to exclusively breastfeed their children for the recommended first 6 months. Mothers like Edie, who didn't consider breastfeeding in the past, are now giving it a try.
Kind of learned about breastfeeding through my whole transition as a health and fitness and nutrition consultant, and it just makes sense to me now, and it seems so much more natural, and so that's why I'm going to do it. I wouldn't want to go back to the bottle. I wouldn't want to go back to, an artificial food supply for my kids when I can give them, the 100% of the nutrition that they need from myself, not to mention it's a lot cheaper.
And some mothers, like Terry, have found that after each baby, she gains more knowledge, support, and comfort, making it easier to breastfeed longer.
When I had Danielle, yes, I breastfed for a couple months, but after that, anybody could bottle feed her. Anybody. I handed a bottle to somebody, and I wasn't the one to feed her. Now it's kind of nice because even with Joey for the first 6 months, they looked to me for that nourishment. That was the bonding experience. Like that's my mom feeds me, that kind of thing.
Support from the family, workplace, and community are all important for a mother. But she should never forget the most valuable resource she has lies within.
There are a lot of people that are going to give you information and advice, and to consider them all as consultants. Take all that information and then trust yourself to know what the right thing to do is.
We'll breastfeed where we please. We care more for our baby's needs than for your modesty. If you hate seeing breasts in this way, look away. Making milk is why breasts exist in the first place. Just give us some space. We refuse to cower. You're super